Hey Marilyn, do your Barbra Streisand impression.
Hello, gorgeous. Papa, 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 can you see me? Papa, can you hear me? Papa, can you find me in the night? Aloha, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Marilyn Maya, the baby boomer booktuber, and this is Jasmine, and I hope you liked the beginning of my video because I don't do impressions except if people are from Brooklyn. So this might be my last impression, but I hope you liked it. This month was very hard for me because I had surgery. So I really wanted to give a wrap up, even though I have so many books I didn't get to. And I wanted to concentrate on two books in particular, or two types of books. And one is my Agatha Christie reads compared to another book. I'm going to put two books up. The real book is going to be in the cards, but this one just says Agatha Christie Mystery Collection. But the book that's going to be up in the cards is Elephants Can Remember. And this is House on Endless Waters, a Holocaust historical fiction book. One of these books made me cry, and you might be surprised which one it is. It wasn't the Holocaust book. It was the Agatha Christie book. And I'll go into it. So, House on Endless Water was suggested to me by Brian at Bookish. And it's quite the literary fictional memoir. I say fictional memoir because the author is Emuna Elon, and she knows a lot about the Holocaust. As I said in my last video, she's an internationally best-selling, critically acclaimed novelist, journalist, and women's activist. And she teaches Judaism, Hasidism, and Hebrew literature. Her first book was not this one, If You Awaken Love, and it was a National Jewish Book Award finalist. And she certainly is a good writer. And I'm going to tell you the problems I had with it and the good parts of it, because there certainly were very important parts of it. So I'm going to read you what it's about. At the behest of his agent, renowned author Yoel Bloom reluctantly agrees to visit his birthplace of Amsterdam to promote his books, despite promising his late mother that he would never return to that city. While touring the Jewish Historical Museum with his wife, Yoel stumbles upon a looping reel of photos offering a glimpse of pre-war Dutch Jewry, and is astonished to see the youthful face of his beloved mother staring back at him, posing with his father, his older sister, and an infant he doesn't recognize. This unsettling discovery launches him into a fervent search for the truth, shining a light on Amsterdam's dark wartime history and the underground networks that hid Jewish children away from danger, but at a cost. The deeper into the past Yoel digs, the better he understands his mother's silence, and the more urgent the question that has unconsciously haunted him for a lifetime, who am I, becomes. Evocative, insightful, and deeply resonant, House on Endless Water is an unforgettable meditation on identity, belonging, and the inextricable nature of past and present. Let me tell you what I liked about it and what I didn't like about it. First of all, this is said to be a mystery, and there's really no mystery of his past. We know from the beginning really, that there's so many hints that he isn't who he thought he was. And he's presented in the book as sort of, not really there emotionally. And he's not very nice to his wife, Badami, who this author really draws women very well. And he goes to Amsterdam, and when he finds the loop that was his mother, that he recognizes, he feels drawn to go back, and he goes back to Amsterdam by himself, though his wife does visit him, and he discovers why he's like he is, and why he always felt that he didn't belong in his family, though he loved his mother very much. And his mother's name is Sonia. I don't know if that was her real name, because he's writing a book. So it's a book within a book. And there's a lot of poetry in this book, and it reminded me a lot of my Jewish roots. If you read Psalms, a lot of words are repeated over and over, and this had the cadence of that. And I appreciated it, and I didn't appreciate it. It was tough going in the beginning, because he, first of all, this is written in present tense. So both the book that he's writing and his story, Yoel's story, are both written in present tense. And in the beginning, we don't know who all the characters are. There's the characters in his book, and he moves into this apartment building that supposedly was where his mother lived. And he's like, almost like a peeping Tom, because in Holland, all the windows are open. There's no curtains. That's part of the Dutch culture. So he's looking into people's windows and imagining, and he imagines his mother there, and he imagines the whole story, which is probably similar to what really happened. But in the beginning, I was a little bit lost. All the characters, I couldn't figure out if this was the characters of the book or the characters in his life, about how he changes. And all I'll say is, I think it's a really well-written book. I think it could have been a third or more shorter. There's a lot of repetition, which I said is, sort of like what Jewish poetry is, or what poetry is. It's a lot of repetition. So that's the good part of it. So House on Endless Waters the theme of it is really not any of the stories that are presented, not his growth or non-growth as a person who had a mother who was in the Holocaust, but it's really, the theme is, or the book he's writing, it's a theme. The theme of it, in my view, is an indictment of Dutch collaborators in the Holocaust. And I was well aware of that. As I said in my last video, in the Holocaust International Memorial Day, Dutch Jews were the most, had the highest rate of murder by the Nazis in the war. So part of this was because of the collaboration of the Dutch. And I've been to all of the places that were mentioned in the book. I've been to the Van Gogh Museum. He talks about his new book being a masterpiece of, like Van Gogh. And I've been to the Jewish synagogue, the Sephardic synagogue, and I've been to a lot of the places that he talked about, the canals and how beautiful, and the water. She talks a lot about the canals and how beautiful the water is, and he's sort of having a breakdown in this book, which is understandable. But yet, I couldn't feel it as much as I wanted to, and I don't know if it's the way that the book was written that kept me a little bit far apart from the people, from the characters in the book, or because my heart is protecting itself against the Holocaust. But so when I talked about in the beginning, I didn't cry during this book like I cried during a lot of Holocaust memoirs, or I haven't read too many books that are said to be Holocaust fiction, because I don't believe there is really such a thing. I'm sure the author is writing out of her own experiences or out of the experiences of people she knew. I'm going to give this book 4 stars because the writing is gorgeous and the story is important. But it was hard going for me. Maybe I'm not a literary fiction reader as much as I would like to say I am. Maybe I need a more straightforward book. I don't know. Then it comes to, well, not this book, but Elephants Can Remember. And Poirot made me cry. So I had to return the book to the library. And this is toward the end of the book that made me cry. And it's not, we all know if we read Agatha Christie that if it's a Poirot book, he always gathers everybody and tells the story of how he came about using his gray cells to solve a crime. So I'm not giving anything away by saying that. So this is the part where I cried. And he's explaining, actually this is not the end of the book, but it's a part of the book where he means to find out the truth. And he's talking to someone, and I don't want to give away any of the story. You will listen to me. You may say that I have imagined is false, what I have imagined. Yes, you might even do that, but I do not think you will. I'm telling you, and I believe it with all my heart, that what is needed here is the truth. It is not just imagining. It is not just wondering. There is a girl and a boy who care for each other and who are frightened for the future because of what may have happened. I'll leave a little part of that out. I am thinking of the girl, a rebellious girl, spirited, difficult perhaps to manage, but with brains, a good mind, capable of happiness, capable of courage, but needing. There are people who need truth because they can face truth without dismay. They can face it with the brave acceptance you have to have in life if life is to be any good to you. And the boy that she loves, he wants that for her too. Will you listen to me? Okay, the reason I cried is because Agatha Christie, not Poirot, is speaking here. And this is how Agatha Christie thought. There are many other parts of her book that speak about how truth is important and how we can face things by knowing the truth. And how Poirot once said, I intend to find the truth. So that's why I'm giving, up in the cards, Elephants Can Remember, 5 stars. So it made me cry. And it's a good story. I said in my last video that I had remembered how it ended. And it's not really that much of a mystery. There's a lot of clues from the beginning, sort of how it might have ended, but not exactly. So you still want to read it. So we're reading it for the characters. We're reading it for the psychology of it. It's a great book, and it's one of Agatha Christie's last books. So I had to bring it back, like I said, but Elephants Can Remember is 5 stars, as is Agatha Christie's 5 Little Pigs. And I already talked about this, but I'll just go to the quick blurb. Amyas Crail has been famous as a painter and infamous as a lover. His fiery wife Marilyn has been as jealous as she was devoted, so naturally it was she who was tried and convicted for his murder. Now their daughter Carla presents the brilliant Hercule Poirot with the greatest challenge of his career: to clear her mother's name by finding the fatal flaw in what, after 16 years, appears to be the perfect crime. And as I said before, this was originally named Murder in Retrospect. But I guess Agatha Christie used a lot of nursery rhymes from her books. Even in Mrs. McGinty's Dead, which I will get to in a second, it was a British nursery rhyme. So I love this book, like I said before, and I give it 5 stars. So why I loved it? It's because of the characters in it are so real to life. They're not all good, they're not all bad. They're very complicated characters. And as we are people, we are complicated people. So that is my second Agatha Christie that I love. So that's 5 stars as well. Now we get to Agatha Christie's and this book is really Mrs. McGinty's Dead. Like I said, it's a nursery rhyme. And basically, this guy, the person that he's trying to save, is sort of a sad sack, or a schlemiel, or a loser. And I think this is what's wrong with the book. He's the person who's accused of killing his landlady for money. But he's sort of taking his, he's willing to just die, and nobody likes him, and he stays that way till the end. So there's no character growth in him whatsoever, though there is romance. And also the story itself to me, was very convoluted. So I'm going to give this, because it is Agatha Christie and there's a lot of good in it, but I was frankly bored, so I'm going to give it 3.5 stars. So that's Agatha Christie. My next book is Sad Cypress, and I haven't finished it yet, but I have a feeling it's going to be 5 stars. And just by reading the poem from Shakespeare that starts it off. Come away, death, and in sad cypress let me be laid. Fly away, breath. I am slain by a fair, cruel maid. My shroud of white, stuck all with you. Oh, prepare it, my part of death, no one so true did share it. So this must be a sonnet of Shakespeare's, which people have tried to figure out who Shakespeare was by his sonnets, and no one really can figure that out. It seems that his sonnets don't really represent who people think he was in real life. And what Sad Cypress is about, and even though this is a wrap-up, I am talking about Agatha Christie. So I did read it once in my 20s. So the story is cousins by marriage and lovers by inclination. Roddy and Eleanor were the ideal match. He loathed any display of emotion, while she was composed at all times. Then they got an anonymous letter warning that their rich Aunt Laura was thinking of cutting them off, and their perfect world vanished. Roddy did the unthinkable and fell in love, and Eleanor found herself charged with murder. When Hercule Poirot is hired to uncover the truth, even the inimitable detective is stumped for a time. But we all know Poirot is going to find out who done it. And what I like about this is I didn't remember it by reading the first. I know I read it, but I don't remember. And I love that I don't remember. My next book is not an Agatha Christie, but it's also a 5-star. And it's called Miss Plum and Miss Penny. And isn't this a beautiful cover? It's by Dorothy Evelyn Smith. And her books and other books are being reprinted with the Dean Street Press. And I'll read you a little bit about it. But something that's not true in this book is, and I think that there is no cat in the story, but I could be wrong. But anyway, Miss Penny is a middle-aged spinster living in cheerful, contented life, complete with perfect housekeeper in an idyllic English village. Her romantic life consists of an annual Christmas card from her old flame George, and her social swirl involves Stanley, a prissy neighbor who keeps her in mind for a future wife, and Herbert, or Hubert, a neurotic widowed priest with an alienated son. Into this stable life comes Miss Plum, who Miss Penny saves from drowning herself in a duck pond and takes into her quiet, orderly home. The villagers embrace the perpetually weepy, forlorn young woman at first, but soon her welcome wears thin. With joyful dark comedy, hilariously odd locals, and an unexpected reappearance from long-lost George, Dorothy Evelyn Smith brilliantly evokes the havoc wreaked by social niceties, misplaced sympathies, and keeping up appearances, not to mention the urge to defend one peaceful existence. This was a delight from beginning to end, and it even had a little mystery in it, which was great. I also ordered another book by Dorothy Evelyn Smith that I'm going to be hauling in my next video for February. I hope it comes by then. But it's supposed to be more of a young adult book, and it's supposed to be her best. But I'm really enjoying all of these books. This book was written in 1958, around there. So it's interesting to see how, because I was brought up in a completely different space. I mean, I'm a Brooklyn girl, and this is Yorkshire, I think. Is it Yorkshire? It just says ideal English village, but it's sort of a fake village. But I can't remember where exactly in England it was. But I really suggest, I give this 5 stars. Now, I already talked about The Odd Woman and the City with Vivian Gornick. And these 2 books, Miss Plum and Miss Penny and The Odd Woman in the City, have something in common. And that is, I intend to read books by and from old women, because there's not enough of it, number one. Number 2, I can relate, believe it or not, even in this time and day, how women who are old are sort of invisible. People don't look at them with the same, the same interest as they do a young woman who walks down the street, especially if you have a cane like I do. That really puts an invisibility barrier against you, and I don't like that. Older women have so much to offer and so much to say. So these 2 books, well, this woman was not old. She's 40, and in that time in the 50s, 40, not married, was considered, you were an old maid. And my mother married at like 37, and her greatest fear was being an old maid. Not so with Vivian Gornick, who was an early feminist, and who is about maybe 15 years older than me, and is still around, though this is a more looking back at your life, and she's with, she has a gay friend, a gay male friend, and they really love to get together and complain. And there's a part in it where she says, I love to complain, don't take that away from me. And it's funny. This is a funny book, and it's wonderful. So read more books by and about older women. Okay, so I give this Odd Woman and the City 5 stars. My other books were books that I took out because I had some health problems that I don't want to go back into. I had cataract operation that hopefully, I'm still waiting for my glasses, but that will hopefully turn out good. And I also have peripheral artery disease in one leg, which I'm trying to take care of by, what else? Books! So, How Not to Die. Wouldn't that be great? And this is by Michael Greger, MD. I think it's Greger. My physical therapist, who's a wonderful girl, she told me about, I should say young woman, she told me about nutritionfacts.org, and Michael Greger, MD, is the one who started this, helping people living a more healthy life. I found the book, though, to be not much more than I found on his website, so I'm giving this 4 stars. So I say go to his website and you'll get a lot of what's in this book. Now there's Undo It, How Simple Lifestyle Changes Can Reverse Most Chronic Diseases. This was written by Dean Ornish and his wife. And there's a lot of recipes, and it's good, but I liked his other book better. The new edition of a program for reversing heart disease. Both, but I give this 4.5 stars. It's called Dr. Dean Ornish's Program for Reversing Heart Disease, the only system scientifically proven to reverse heart disease without drugs or surgery. This really surprised me because it talked about how he suffered from mental illness, and that goes into another book that I'm just going to mention. And so I liked it better than this one. I didn't like his recipes as much as I could have, so I'm going to give this, did I give it already 4.5 stars? I don't know, 4 stars. I had one more book that I'm not really going to talk about because I'm going to do a review on it. It's The Silent Patient by Michael Michaelides, and I really disliked that book because it portrayed mental illness as being a part of psychopathy, and I didn't appreciate how mental hospitals were portrayed, that everybody can just go in and out, and there was so much wrong with that book. And I didn't even like the mystery in it or the ending, which everybody loves. So I'll do a review on that book, but I give that book 1 star, and I'll talk about that later. So me and Jasmine want to say to everyone, say goodbye for now, and I really enjoyed doing this video, and I hope my voice wasn't, I used to sing, used to being the key word here, so please forgive my my voice, and until we meet again, my friends, very soon, I love you all, and I send you beautiful baskets of aloha from Hawaii.